What's up, everybody? It's Conversations with Cobi. You know what time it is. It's 8:30 on a Wednesday. I'm here. So, I always got these crazy stories that I start to tell you with, and hopefully I'm getting better and I have a moral. But one thing I want to tell you, Biz, like my wife, and I always talk about her. I love her to death. But I got two puppies in my house. I got a 10-month-old French Bulldog, a 14-week-old French Bulldog, and a 10-year-old American Bulldog who acts like somebody's old grandma. But the problem is the 13-week French Bulldog keeps doing stuff. She's peeing and pooping everywhere. So today I'm getting ready for the show. She poops in front of my office door and I step in it. So as I step in it, I clean it. And it taught me a quick moral. And I know everybody's maybe not getting it like I get it. But I want you to get it like I get it, right? When it comes to family, sometimes you got to step in some shit so the flowers can grow. So I stepped in the shit on the way out of the office. I'm going to work hard at making this puppy happy and let her grow so my family can grow and be happy and nurture it. So I hope you got my message today. You know what I mean? And I pray that you don't step in some shit. Excuse my language. But today we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. I got a beautiful brother here from the 717, Harrisburg, PA, that has started a magazine about men. And so we're going to talk about some manhood today, the evolution of the magazine, and also how success has framed him. So we're going to move forward. We're going to bring on my brother, Rashod Davenport. What's up, my brother? How's everything going?
I'm beautiful, man. How's everything? I appreciate you being me.
Oh, man. Like, I love talking to you. This is the second time we actually got to talk on a long-term thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I'm always down for a dope conversation, so we're good.
I appreciate. So what I want to do before I get into anything heavy, everybody from Harrisburg knows about this one thing that nobody else can understand, and that's Middlesworth chips.
I was gonna say Middlesworth. It's chip crack. I don't know what's in that seasoning, but it's just you land in Harrisburg. That's the first thing you go get. I'm going to the store, getting some chips. You pack up a box, you ship it back home. Now you can actually get them delivered. So I mean, it's gold.
Yeah, every time when I went to college, when I went to Cheney, CU 1837, when I went to Cheney, I would go home, bring the big barrel back. Everybody would eat them.
Yo, my boys at in Johnson C. Smith. I went to school again in Charlotte. They called them M chips because all they saw was the big M, and they was like, "Yo, what is these M chips?" And they started eating them, and they started asking my mom to send them chips. So like, if I was on the phone, they were like, "You talking to your mom?" Like, yeah. They'd be like, "Miss Michelle, can you please send us some chips?" I'm like, "Dude, don't scream through my phone to my mom." That's
straight violation. Yo, listen, my wife was talking junk about my chips till she ate them. Now every time I get them, right, she's like, "I know you're gonna share, right? I know you're gonna share, right?"
Nah. And I think that's the beautiful part of marriage, but that sharing part with Middleworth, it don't work out too well. So what I do personally, I get my own bag. So I have a weekender bag that's mine. The other bags are in the house, like whoever want to eat them, have fun, enjoy. That weekender is mine. Don't touch it. Is barbecue kettle cooked? I'll fight. That's a fight.
Yeah, they don't understand. It's something different. And when you're away, and when you're away from them, people don't get it.
Nah, until they taste them.
Yeah, but so look,
I want people in Atlanta loving them now.
I hope Middlesworth listen. They need to give me some sponsorship. But anyway, when we get back, I want to talk to you because you're a kid from Harrisburg, which is a small city. People don't really understand, and people don't understand how urban and part of the black ecosystem that Harrisburg is, and the flavor that it has.
Yeah.
But coming from there, going to Charlotte, and then going to Atlanta, tell me about that transition.
Going to Charlotte was kind of culture shock for me. Because at that point I had only lived in Harrisburg. So it's like I was introduced to a major city. But then it wasn't just being introduced to the city, it was going to a HBCU and being introduced to all these black people from different areas with different cultures. And merging all that together. So it's like you're learning from these dudes from DC, you're learning from dudes from South Carolina, Texas. I had a friend that was from Alaska, like California. It's just everybody's in this area. So it almost felt like when you was in elementary school and you end up at middle. And when you got to middle school, it was like you found all these other dudes from different areas of the city. And it was just weird. But you get to college and it's so different that you just want to like take aspects of everyone and just like learn their stuff. I came back from Charlotte, moved to Philly, lived in Philly for about 6 years, moved from there to Brooklyn, lived in Brooklyn for about 4 or 5 years, left there, moved to LA, was out there for about 2.5 years. And then I moved to Atlanta. So I've bounced around the country to the point where I'm comfortable anywhere. So I can get anywhere and just be comfortable around cultures. New York was, again, culture shop. It's my building, this apartment building was 8 units, 4 floors, and literally had a Puerto Rican neighbor. There was an Asian lady downstairs. A dude from Turkey was down below me. The man on the first floor is from Trinidad. And like somebody else is from Cuba, like the lady that was beside the Trinidadian man. So it's just like, it was different. So you got music differences, like food differences. Like you walk through the hall and like the smells are just, it was insane, but I loved it. I love learning about different people.
It's interesting, like leaving Harrisburg, and I'm not going to harbor on that too long. Once you leave Harrisburg, you're able to survive because Harrisburg is a tough city to be able to escape scum. And people don't realize that. So I'm not going to belabor that issue. But you started a magazine called Suave Magazine.
Yeah.
SUAVV.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
About men. What made you start that magazine?
So when I was living in Philly, my younger brother, he went to school for magazine journalism at Temple. I was in school for business and like ended up moving to Philly because he had to leave his dorm, had to find an apartment, all that other kind of stuff. So I was like, all right, I'll just move there because I didn't want to live in Harrisburg. So we would go to the store and we would go magazine shopping like once a month and just buy different magazines. And this one time before we went on a trip, we went to the store. It was Tower Records. Tell you how long ago that was. So we went to Tower. We bought magazines. We got to the register. It was like $85. And we were only buying magazines, like each magazine we were only buying for like maybe 5 or 6 pages of the magazine. Like a small concept of that magazine is all we were buying it for. So he got frustrated and was like, yo, I hate that we're spending $80, $90 a month on magazines. So we took all the magazines. He said he wanted to start one, which I'm like, I'm the wrong person to say you want to start doing something because I'm going to push you to do it. So we took all the magazines, we ripped out all the pages, put it on the ground and took aspects of different magazines, what we liked about the magazine, and we put together like a magazine, like a tear sheet magazine, and was like, this is what a black men's magazine would look like, because there wasn't anything on the market. I think at the time it was like Savoy, but Savoy was going out of business. So Uptown wasn't a black men's magazine, it was just a black culture lifestyle magazine. Ebony was Ebony, which we felt was like for an older generation. Essence was for women. Jet was like a news magazine, and that was it. So it's like there's nothing that spoke to us in our generation, in our voice, that had the stuff that we cared about. So we were just like, let's just do it and make it happen.
So what I've noticed, right? It is about a lot of things when you say a men's magazine, right? But there's no gossip.
Nah.
You know, there's no. Nah. Everything is positive.
Yeah.
Explain that thought process.
There's so much negativity that we already have. So there's enough of the influence in our culture that tries to tear down our culture. So you have the gossip columns, you have the gossip blogs, you have like even Instagram, YouTube, you have stuff that is literally just meant to tear people down. So there's even shows that I personally don't support because I feel like it's just negativity. And if you want to balance that, you have to put positivity inside of that negative aspect or that negative atmosphere. So we were just like, what we won't do is talk about negative anything with somebody. If it's bringing it up, we're talking about how you got out of it, or it's addressing it and then moving on to something else positive that you're doing, because you have to balance out and be honest with situations. So if it's a person who got into something, it's like, well, touch on this quickly. We know you got into this. Like, what's the truth of it? What happened? Let's get off of it. And it's that I don't feel that doing any kind of gossip columns, any kind of just hit stories, basically, which you can do those and you can gain followers, you can gain people's attention, traction, because people who's going to share the negative stuff. I don't want nothing to do with that. Like, I'm not going to utilize my platform to tear anybody else down. It's not going to work.
So I love that concept, because we do have a lot, and it's kind of pervasive in our culture.
Yeah.
And your magazine, as you make this transition, I love how you pivot from just the online magazine to not online, but to magazine, to online, to the podcast and all these other things.
Yeah.
But explain to me, like, when you talk about manhood, people talk about toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
What is manhood to you?
I think it's broad. I think it's manhood in general is just being a responsible person. You're protecting your family. You're making sure your family is financially secure. You're making sure that you are emotionally stabilizing the people that are in your family, people that are around you. You take care of your community in some aspect. It's something that you're doing that isn't just about you, but it's about building up your area, building up your community, building up your family. That's the broad aspect. When you get into like smaller visions, it's, making sure that the people in your family feel empowered. So if you're married, making sure your wife doesn't feel beneath you, but she feels empowered with you, making sure your kids are able to express their emotions, able to chase their dreams without you ridiculing or putting them down. It's making sure that you hold your friends accountable for the things that they do in their lives that are negative or even positive. You celebrate them. It's making sure that you're just always present in the lives of other people in the area that you live in. I think that's what manhood is. And I think it's catching a different perspective over the last decade of what it means to be a man. Because a lot of it was BS, to be honest.
Well, I'm going to charge you with this. I don't think it was BS in a sense, but what I think we're talking about is evolution, right? Because there's one day the alpha male or the male needed to do certain things to support the female, right? And it became a circular relationship. Now it's a choice to do those things because we have equalizers, right? We have computers, we have guns, we have knowledge, we have all these things that can make it safe for a female to take care of her family. Like, literally, you don't need a male in the house, right?
And to be factual, no, you don't. I mean, there women, I think in the mid last century, they had to depend on the men because they were the homemakers. Like, they were home taking care of everything. That shifted maybe like 90s. And then women were a lot more of the breadwinners in the family and more present in the families. And now it's just meet me where I'm at. Like, if you can match where I'm at, then we good. But I ain't about to be sitting at home waiting for you to do something. So I think that aspect, like that evolution of relationship is definitely there. And I think where I say it was like BS, I think like the 90s, like early 90s going into like early 2000s, we entered like a womanizing mentality in just like speech and media and like visually. It became making women objects more of a visual thing for the Black community, because it wasn't necessarily happening as much in other races. It was mainly us doing it. And then, that's when like a lot of the verbal disrespect starts, a lot of the, it's okay to just be a jerk to a female. Like, a lot of that happens at that point. And I think what happens is you get some OGs in the world that start holding dudes accountable, and it's like, that's not going to work. Yeah. And I think it takes that in every evolution of culture. It takes a generation to say, this is where we need to correct things. But in doing that, that same generation has to admit where their faults were and their wrongs were, because we can turn on the generation, not realizing the generation we're turning on is the one we raised.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting statement, right? And I'm gonna come back for one moment. I think the difference when we talk about hip hop, right? People always blame hip hop for a lot of the downside to the black community, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Nah, but I'm just saying, a lot of people like to approach it. But when you're talking about, and me, I grew up at the evolution of hip hop, and I say this: when you're talking about 20 to 25-year-old men having a conversation with each other, it's a different conversation,
much different,
than 30, 40-year-old men having conversations with each other. And the thing with hip hop is that we're promoting, we're playing, and we're broadcasting the idea of manhood through the eyes of 25 to 20-year-old men.
Absolutely.
And that's where the biggest problem comes in at. And I don't want to harbor, because this ain't about my emotions today and my feelings. I brought you on a
conversation.
I brought you on because you. So I'm gonna come back to something, because I've been studying. I did my research today, so I'm gonna come back to something. But let me tell you. I want you to tell us. Not let me tell you, but I want you to tell us about your magazine and how it focuses on those different aspects of what manhood is.
Yeah. So one of the main things we do is make sure we talk about all the things that we would have in regular conversations, like what you and I are talking about right now. Like, this isn't something that is typically mainstream. These are conversations that we end up having when we were at like a cookout, or, we might be hanging out at the house with a bunch of our friends, something like that. Maybe a barbershop conversation, but it's not a mainstream conversation that is put out in the media. So we make sure that, we touch on things that are relationship driven. We make sure we're touching on health situations. We make sure we give the entertainment. So it's John Johnson, who published Ebony Magazine. He said pretty much making a magazine is 80% orange juice, 20% cod liver oil, which is what you used to give kids when they were sick. He's like, so you got to give people the orange juice, which is your entertainment, your fitness, your music, all that kind of stuff. And the cod liver oil are the real topics. So that's when you start hitting politics. You start hitting conversations about mental health, conversations about relationships, whether it's with your spouse, your parents, your kids, whatever. It's balancing out and showing that there are conversations that Black men have that the world don't know we have. So they figure that it's not something that we care about. So if we're not having a loud vocal conversation about politics, you think we don't know about it. But we're watching it. We're just not communicating it, because there's places where we can be chastised for having a strong political view. And we saw that civil rights going forward. Like, once you start really showing what you know, they come after you. So we quiet down, but that's not saying we're not paying attention. So we see everything that's happening. And now it's like we're starting to have these conversations out in public. And the goal of the magazine is make sure that our voices are truly heard in those conversations. Whereas a lot of other magazines, they'll take a conversation with a Kanye West or a LeBron James or a Jay-Z, and they edit their words to make it fit their magazine, make it fit their audience. And that's no longer the truth of that person.
Wow. That's deep to hear that. Yeah. So you mentioned Kanye West, Jay-Z, LeBron James. Who was your favorite or most influential interview that you've done?
Russell Simmons.
Wow. Why?
Because I think it was the conversation around the interview. So the interview was about put out Do You. So we talked about that. But it was talking about what success means to a millionaire. So it's like, we think that success is money, stability. And he said, when I became rich, I had to hire the Secret Service from the White House to put a security system in my house because people were threatening to kidnap his kids. So it's like, there's a different level of problems that come. And they say like more money, more problems. But we think that that's just like, friends, family, that kind of stuff, taxes. It's like you got constant threats on your life, constant threats on your kids' life, people threatening your wife, people trying to steal your money. Oprah says she's in court weekly by the year, but people just trying to sue her. And that's not just individuals, that's industry. So it's like learning that kind of stuff and then getting the advice. And I think at the time we were in there, I told him that, you know, the magazine was a urban men's magazine. And he was like, what the hell is an urban man? And I was like, I mean, just you kind of encompass anybody that lives in urban communities. He was like, it's a black men's magazine. I said, yeah. He was like, call it a damn black men's magazine. And I was explaining to him like the kickback that you got from advertisers. And basically what he said is like, it doesn't matter if you change your word. If they don't want to deal with your magazine because you're black, they're not going to deal with your magazine because you're black. So you have to step out of the scope. And there's a lot of fears when we have businesses of saying it's a black owned business because we think that downgrades the quality of our business. So it was those kind of conversations that are around the interviews that are so much deeper than the actual interview. I mean, we sat in this office. It's Russell Simmons. We sat in his office for like 2 hours, and it was like a 20-minute interview, and we only had like a 20-minute window. And they were like, "You got to be out of here in 20 minutes." Dude kept us in there for 2 hours. So it's just interviews like that, and like same thing. When I interviewed Tyrese, I was on the phone with him for like 2.5, 3 hours talking about everything in a 20-minute interview. So it's just, I think the conversations around the interviews are so much more important than the actual interview for me. That's
dope, man. That Tyrese, he wasn't crying, was he?
No, we talked about we did talk about like his wife, his kids. He got emotional talking about pretty much. He called me from the airport and he was like, "Yo, I'm driving, so I might be running a little late." But instead of hanging up, we just talked from him leaving the airport, going to his house. So he was driving to his house. He parks at the bottom of the hill, and he calls me on FaceTime, and he was like, "Bruh, look," and turned the phone around, and you could see like his house lit up on the top of the hill. And he was like, "I can't fucking believe that's my house." And he got emotional. He was like, "I grew up literally broke in the hood with no shoes, and that's my house." And it was like, it was a moment. And he was like, he never really has the time to take that in. But because he was driving himself back home, and he was like, it was night and he was driving up the hill, and it was just like that moment hit him like while he was on the phone with me. Like stuff like that is crazy. So I brought it up in the interview, and I'm like, you know, as he's driving home, he sees his house on the hill, he stops his car. And it's just making that relatable to people, because we dehumanize celebrities to make them just celebrities, and they're people. And that's kind of what we want to do with the magazine.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we dehumanize, especially black celebrities.
Absolutely.
And then we hold them to a different level of accountability than we do all the others.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's interesting to hear that story, because now I'm going to be a little nicer to Tyrese because he hurt me with all the crying. But I get it.
It hurt.
But
I
get
all
it.
Of us. But I think the problem with that was the grounding wasn't established. So it's just like, we're looking at it like, dude, what are you on here crying for? But when you find out later on down the line, there's these custody cases, and then like his ex was keeping the kids away from him and basically like skipping out on visitations. He's going to court. She's lying on him, saying like, you know, he's doing this, that, and the other. It's like, it's that kind of stuff. Now going to social media and like venting about it, that ain't the right way to go. So I think that was where he kind of like threw all of us for a curve, because we're looking at him like, you're rich. What are you crying for? And that's the mentality that we have. Like, you're rich. And as long as you're rich, you're fine. And again, that rich comes with problems. And we just saw that with Dr. Dre and his wife. Like, you trying to take everything from this dude.
But that's like, I have a different issue, because sometimes when you see, that's when you talk about assimilation, right? And what I mean by that is a lot of these guys, when they become rich, they assume getting a wife of a very, very light-skinned color is making it, you know, and they could be white, Asian, or anything else. And then when they have those problems without dealing with the sister that they came with or all the other stuff,
they come back.
Or they start blaming or making excuses, or black women didn't like me. Like, nah, you might have been a cornball and doing extra stuff, but that's a whole nother situation.
That's, you know, but it's a real one.
You know, like,
it's real.
Not because like this is, I don't know if it was you or somebody else. It might have been you or one of my other friends. They were talking about Russell Wilson, right?
But that wasn't me. I don't think.
Okay, so people was calling Russell Wilson corny before he married Sierra. Then as she helped him style and build presence, they call him corny for that. The same cats that called him corny when he was being him, doing him, or calling him a simp, is calling him corny now. It don't matter, right?
If they think you corny, it don't matter what you do.
Yeah, and so the sad part is, the beauty of it for Russell is he got a bad wife who's committed to living and appreciates him for him. Those same dudes that's calling him corny and probably single are going to be that uncle that comes to Thanksgiving with a new girlfriend. But that's a whole nother story.
That's what I'm saying. And if they not single, they not married to Sierra. So
nah, not at all.
So it's I think I say this to a lot of people, like we as a culture, not I don't want to generalize that. There's a group of us in the culture that really just hate seeing someone win if we're not at a point where we feel like we're winning ourselves. So it doesn't matter what you do. If you're winning and everything looks great in the viewfinder that we're looking at you through, we don't like it. And it's because it has nothing to do with that person. It's because when we look at that, then we turn and look at ourselves and we don't like where we're at. So not liking us makes us not like you. And it just turns on people. And it's a crazy way that we operate. And I try to, address that as much as I can. But I mean, it's a sad reality that we have.
But here's the thing for me, right? And we got like about 4 or 5 more minutes, and I don't want to keep you longer than we need to because I respect your time. But like,
I appreciate that.
No, because every race of people has that people. We're the ones who have remorse, buyer's remorse, or success remorse.
Yeah.
And so we're more in tune to what our friends or those people who didn't make it think, and we care more about them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If it's a white guy that was in Paul Tuck, Mississippi, that left the city and left the little country and all his friends talk about him, but he don't care because he got new friends.
Yeah.
We care because it's this thing called keeping it real, and we're tied to that.
And so keeping it real is a downfall. It's a downfall.
Chappelle had the best show. When keeping it real goes wrong.
Yeah, it's a downfall. That's I think the bad part for us is we think that keeping it real is limited by success. So it's like you can be successful and still keep it real. You can move to a better neighborhood and still be keeping it real. You can grow as a person and still keep it real. It's the point of, are you turning your back on everything that is who you are because you're successful? Once you do that, then no, you're not keeping it real. But if I can step into a boardroom full of white people and say, this is some bullshit because that's not how we think, I'm still able to keep it real in that aspect. If I go in there and be like, yeah, I don't care, do whatever y'all want to do with them, that's them, then nah, you're no longer keeping it real. Yeah,
because look, I'm gonna tell you this. There's 2 things that changed with me. I didn't change as a person. I grew up 44 North Summit, 1148 E Cloverly Road, out Hoover Homes. You know what I'm saying? And I was on 2713 Jefferson Street. But right now, as I grew and I evolved, I changed. My address changed.
Hold on, you was at 2713 Jefferson?
Yeah.
Dude, I grew up 2421 Jefferson.
Get out of here. I was 3 houses from the corner of Jefferson and Division.
Yeah, 2421. Radnor Playground was my place.
Oh, get out of here. So yeah, I was on Jefferson, and it was a Jefferson and McClay. It used to be like a little store there, but we used to play wall ball on that store, that little parking lot right there.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
See, you're going to have me talking too much. But as I evolve, things change. When you get more money, your address changes. You need to change. You think about different things. And a lot of times we don't accept that. But I want to get into Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. You ain't think I did my research, did you?
Nah. Many people don't bring that up. So I watched a movie. I don't remember what movie it was. But I got fascinated with his life. And I was like, I want to interview this dude. And again, we were a small magazine. So I'm like, we probably not going to get this interview, but I'm going to try. So I started writing physical letters and mailing them to South Africa. And then I found like an email address on like his foundation page. I started emailing them. I was calling over there in the middle of the night here because it was first thing in the morning there. And I was reaching out every way possible for like a year and a half. It was weekly. I was sending something over there and trying to contact them. Eventually, like his person sent me a email back and was like, hey, Mr. Mandela's sick. He's no longer doing interviews. He's not doing press. So unfortunately, we can't accommodate that. I was like, cool. Emailed him back and was like, if I just send you questions, can you just, find the answers for him and have them sent back over to me? Sent me back and was like, no, we can't do that. I kept sending them stuff weekly. And then my letter started saying, I understand you're not doing well health-wise. I understand you're not doing interviews. I would love to have just 5 minutes of time. I would love to ask you just one question. Nothing happens. And then I sent something else, and this lady calls me from this number. I didn't recognize it. So I answered the phone. I'm like, hello? And she speaks to me in like an African accent. Was like, is this Rashod Davenport? And I'm thinking it's like a spam call. I was like, nah, who is this? And she was like, is that who this is? And I was like, yeah, that's who it is. Like, what do you want? She was like, I have Mr. Mandela for you. I was like, what the fuck? And then I'm looking at my brother. I'm like, he said, what is it? I was like, some African lady talking about Mandela. And then he gets on the phone and I'm silent for like the 5 minutes he's talking to me. I'm pissed off. I didn't have my recorder set up. This is like old. I had like a corded phone and like a recorder had to go on the cord part. He gets on the phone. He's like, I've seen your magazine. I love what you're doing. I think it's great for the culture. You're going to do amazing things. Just stay strong. You're going to have some adversities because of what you're doing and how you're doing it, but never give up. And he apologized for not being able to do the interview with me. And he just basically said, I believe in what you're doing, and it's going to be a whole lot bigger than you think it's going to be. Just make sure you put your all into it. All I remember saying to the man is thank you and goodbye. Like, I don't remember anything else from my mouth. And then like I hung up and literally bawled. And it wasn't, at that point, I didn't care about the interview anymore. It was, I understood that as long as I keep pushing, I can get what I want. And this is like fucking Nelson Mandela. And you don't get interviews with this man. And I knew that the possibility of me getting one is more likely not going to happen. But because I kept going, I ended up getting a phone call from him. And again, I'm mad I didn't have the capability of recording it. But it's just knowing that he saw it, and then that not necessarily, like a nod of approval from somebody who is a legend. Like, that meant everything. So yeah, I think I still have the email in like a folder somewhere on my hard drive. And I was like, she was like, nah, he's not doing interviews. I'll call you tomorrow. So nobody's untouchable.
Yo, that's beautiful, man. And I can imagine because he's so powerful, especially for us. You know what I mean? Yeah. I can imagine. So I'm gonna leave you with one last thing. I got one last question because I try to stay within my 30 minutes. But explain success. What is success to you?
I think for me, success is building something that benefits someone else other than yourself. So for me, it's getting to a point where you can look back and say, me doing this is going to help this person do this thing. So me having the magazine and having an outlet and having these conversations that people aren't necessarily having anywhere else, it allows people outlets. My last campaign I did, the Kiss Your Fathers Kissing Their Son campaign, like the messages I got in my inbox from like dudes who was like, seeing this makes me cry. And I wish that me and my dad had this relationship, or my dad passed away and we never really got to have that closeness, or I've been having this conversation with people forever and no one listens to it. It's having that kind of impact and making sure that everything that I do is going to in some way uplift someone, even if it's not masses, like somebody's able to take something away from it. That's important. Giving people outlets that they typically wouldn't have is important to me. I have interns that I give the biggest story of the issue to, because I know if they were at any other magazine, they'll be doing grunt work. And the only way you're going to learn this business is to be in the business full on. So if it's a cover story, go do it. Like, figure it out. Like, take your nerves out and learn how this works. It's creating success, is creating longevity. And I think people confuse success with monetary riches. And you can be wealthy and not be successful. So it's about what you leave, because when you leave, your money's gone. Like, that no longer matters. Your family now has it. But it's like, what did you leave for someone to carry a torch with? And I think that's what success is.
Wow, that's kind of dope, man. Yo, so I'm gonna ask. I didn't ask this question prior. Did you go to Harrisburg High School?
I did. Class of 2000.
I know that's right. So I got one thing I want to say to you, and I want to see if you can follow that up. And I'm gonna get it started and see if you can finish and help me close this down.
All right.
Hey, black and gray, na 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 na. As the story goes, na 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 na. Say we gonna win, na na na. Let's do it. So when you ain't joined it.
Oh, I thought you was gonna stop and leave me an opening.
No, you were supposed to join it. You were supposed to join it.
My bad, because I'm a band dude, so we was playing the whole way through that. So
you play what instrument?
Tuba. So
get out.
Black and Gray was it. We was killing it.
I was a tenor drum.
Nah, man, that we had a drum line, like rest of the band kind of battle thing happen. So
yeah, but I'm telling you, I was there. I played in the band. So I'm gonna leave this because now I'm getting too homey for everybody. so when we was in the band camp, right? We used to go to Shippensburg, but he tried to make us play Ave Maria.
It ain't gonna work.
Nah, we protested.
Who did y'all have? Was it Ross? Not Ross.
No, we had Mr. Mitz.
Mitz came back when I was a junior, and Mr. Corey threw him out.
Oh, get out of here! So Nook, Evans Lowry. Nook was Nook played tuba when I was a tenor drummer.
When I lived in Bigelow, Nook lived in the townhouses right behind my townhouse.
Oh, get out! So go ahead.
Nah, dude, when I was growing up, I was like a knucklehead. So he used to like snatch me up and like take me back home. My mom knows his mom, and they like went to church together. Like all that, man.
So Black Toe,
all them dudes.
Yeah, that was the crew, because people don't realize that Harrisburg being in the band was cool.
That was the coolest part. It was either the band or basketball, because the football team wasn't great at the point, but they got a little better in the 90, like 96, 97-ish.
Oh man, so we'll talk later. We got a lot to talk about. Look,
yeah, man. I
ain't gonna keep you on here forever. I'm gonna let you go. I want you to check out Suave Magazine. Please check the thing down the bottom, suavv.com, right? At Suave Magazine on all social media. Check out the family. Yo, brother, thank you for coming through. Please come through again. Yo, much love and peace, brother.
All right, peace, man.